everybody turn on their microphones, and we'll make sure Michelle can hear us.
Okay, Michelle, we're recording now.
Okay.
Can you hear Michelle say something? Let's see if the audience can hear you.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's budget committee meeting.
Okay, you're in
Just put
charge.
the microphone right down on.
They can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
All right, we're good to go.
Yep,
We're on
yep.
on tape.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Just stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
To the flag
of the
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we allow Michelle to participate remotely. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have to do a roll call vote. So Alina?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Great.
So first up are the minutes from November 18. And
They all looked good to me. My only request would be multiple places throughout the document. It refers to the BOS to stand for Board of Selectmen. If we could just update that to Select Board for now in the future, that would be great. Otherwise, they looked good.
Okay.
I've got a few things on the first page. The first bullet point, it says, when planning, or it says approved, but it probably means approving the budget.
Oh, yeah.
You okay with that?
Yep. And if you can keep those, if you can provide your changes to me, I can't look at I can't look at the minutes because I have them on my Google Drive.
Okay.
So.
Okay, you want me to
But
just,
I will make the changes when I get back.
you want me to mark them
That'd
up
be great.
and just give them to you in writing?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, still review them with everybody, but I can't make them here right now.
Okay. In the second bullet point, it refers to, and the revenue it will take to cover costs. And I would say rather than revenue, the funds it will take. And then further in that bullet point, the calculation does include actual revenues. I'd like to insert the word actual there. In the next paragraph, I'd like to start with total valuations increase 2% per year, and town revenues, $2 million, are fairly flat year to year. Near the middle of that paragraph, okay, there's BOS. And then where it says 814,000, I'd like to have it say 1.7 million to offset taxes and retain less than usual. And below that, for 2024, so the tax rate needed to increase to account for that difference. And then in the last sentence, for the revenue reduction from the prior year resulted in an increase of 9%, 1.6 million, needing to be raised by taxes. So I'll put that in writing to you. Now, you had,
Do you want to keep it as a revenue or a funding reduction? Because the revenue stays flat as we've talked, right, about 2 million. So it was the reduction in funding, not the revenue. I think there's like misuse of the definition.
yeah, and where was that
It
particular?
combined with the revenue reduction, the last sentence when you say all of that combined with the revenue reduction, but it wasn't the revenue reduction, it was the funding reduction.
The reason I'm using the word revenue there is because the state uses that in their form, called the tax breakdown. I mean, I think we can get away with either one.
Or you could
but-
put revenue/funding.
Right, I think it's just in this particular paragraph, we're starting with total valuations increase and revenues 2 million are fairly flat year to year, and then you call revenue reduction, that's gonna be confusing. That's what I'm saying. Because in one place you're saying that it's fairly flat, which is true, and then you're saying that due to the revenue reduction.
Okay. So you want to continue with the word revenue, is that?
The
No, I'd say
words that,
funding.
the words that DRA uses is they use the word revenue for actual cash coming into town, and they use fund balance to reduce taxes as the, so fund is more
Like that.
funding. So to your point,
Yeah.
it might be better to call it revenue/funding, just to clarify that those are two different streams of money.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just say funding reduction.
Okay, and Michelle, you had highlighted two places on the second page. I'm not sure what you were looking for. You said Letty Bedard offered a rough 8-year plan with the 2025 budget increasing 275,000 over last year for a deputy and 1 lieutenant. Then adding a new employee each year, and you have a question mark for how long.
Yeah, so I didn't know, I thought the overall staffing change that they were looking for was the 1 deputy and the 2 lieutenants. But I thought she had said something about adding someone every year, and I didn't know if she was saying not to add the deputy and the 2 lieutenants at this point, but add them going forward, or if she was thinking about other staff that they were gonna want going forward, and I didn't recollect that. I did text her, for clarification, but she didn't answer me, so I don't know if anyone else recalls that conversation.
Yeah, I think the 5 to 8 year plan was to focus on future growth of the department. So the first step was what we're talking about tonight with the adding a deputy and converting 2 positions to lieutenant. And I think the idea was in talking with the fire department and the chief that there would be a plan to slowly grow the department over time, similar to how we did with police. I don't have the numbers in front of me that they had been sort of, making a long-term plan, but Chief, that was the basic plan, right? Slow growth over time. Yeah. Right, so not adding any additional people this year, but thinking for future years that at some point we'll need to grow that department, but not in this year's budget.
So I'm just not sure how you want to word that, because I wasn't.
I mean, I think you could say something more general.
Was. I mean, maybe you want to take that extra out and just focus.
Yeah,
on
you
what
can
you
either take that out
meant to do for
or,
this year.
yep, I think you could either take it out or you could put, a plan that accounts for slow growth of the department over time, something more general, because the BudCom and Select Board would have to agree to that in future budget years.
There was another, on page 3 also, you highlighted wage increases are 3% for clerk and 2% for deputy. I'm not sure what your question there was.
Because she said 3 and 2, and I didn't know if she meant 3 for, who got the 3 and who got the 2. Jen, I don't know if you know that.
Not off the top of my head. I know that that when they switched, that Joyce's position did not get an adjustment this year because of the switch. I'm pretty sure that Daphne was in there for 5% total increase. And I don't know Heather's off the top of my head, but I suspect it was a 3 plus 2 in there. Because nobody would have been 2%
Daphne
because
got 5, not 3.
I believe so, because nobody would have been 2% because that would be below COLA. So if it said 3 and 2, I suspect that was additive for the employees.
Oh. Okay. I can clarify that with her, actually.
Sure, yes, yeah,
Okay.
Daphne knows that.
That'd be good. So the last thing I have is actually at the end, we left it with a motion to adjourn. But I don't remember if we voted.
We did.
Okay,
Who else said aye?
we almost didn't, but in any event. Any other comments or amendments for the minutes? We could do that. We could have her reproduce the minutes and actually vote on them next week or next meeting.
And Michelle, I just looked in my review folder that I have here with me, and Heather was a 5% as well.
So Heather was 5%?
Correct,
And what was Daphne?
5%.
Also, okay.
You want to make that a motion that we
Sure.
table it?
Well, we can, I think now that it's been clarified, we can vote for those changes.
All the
For the
changes?
changes that you've listed.
Okay.
So motion to approve?
Second?
Oh, I'll second.
So we'll do a roll call vote. Helena?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
And does Michelle want to vote?
And I'm an aye.
Okay.
Perfect.
Motion passes. So committee updates. Jen, you have some?
What's listed for me on here is fire, so I'll probably defer that because we have fire here tonight to present their budget. All that I'll say about that is that when we discussed the budget last week at Select Board, there was a good discussion that the process of having brought it here first and getting kind of preliminary agreement from this board before going back to Select Board was actually very helpful. And I think encouraged the Select Board to approve that budget in front of us, even with the understanding that it is a budgetary jump for that department. But knowing in advance that this board was philosophically in favor of those changes was very helpful and was a good collaborative process. And I think the chief spoke to that was a helpful process to make sure that these boards are on the same page with each other. And I think I'll just leave it at that because I'll let them speak for themselves when they come up to present their budget.
Do you have anything else then for us? Or?
Just that when we do budgets tonight, you have a separate packet in front of you, which has in red pen some of the changes and modifications as made by Select Board, as I've done in the past. And then I'll work with Letty to get these updated in BMSI. So as we go through the budgets, I will try to present the most accurate version of what Select Board approved because it doesn't necessarily 100% match what is in the BudCom packet. So you have a separate packet in front of you for the changes. The joint loss one has no changes, but all the rest of them do.
Okay, I have some questions about the new assessment,
Yes.
which is going to be done in 2025.
Correct.
Do you know, will the tax rate for 2025 be based on the new assessment?
I believe so, yes. And so we can anticipate that it will likely fall significantly from 25 down several points lower, because as valuations go up, it's a bigger number multiplied by a smaller number. And yes, I believe that the revaluation occurs in the, I think, late spring, summer timeframe. And I believe those are the numbers that are used with DRA to set the tax rate that fall. So by next year, my understanding is we use the new valuation.
So do you have any idea when they'll be completed? You think they'll complete it in the spring? Is
I
that what you're
think in
saying?
the summer is when it's completed and done, if I remember, because we actually were just looking into this because we're getting ready to find a group to contract with to do the revaluation. And when I looked at the last one in 2019, I feel like it started like late spring, early summer, and then completed during the summer.
Uh,
We went out to bid in 2019 and it occurred in 2020.
But doesn't Jim Michaud's company do that?
I don't know historically if there's some years where he did the full town revaluation. In 2020, he did not. We outsourced to a separate company, and that is what we are going to do. He's let us know he's not able to do the full town revaluation, so we'll be outsourcing to a separate company, and we have a capital reserve fund with funds in it to pay for that.
I have about a dozen questions for the assessor.
Sure, I bet you do.
But we don't know who it's going to be now. is
We
what
don't yet.
So even,
It may be the same company we used 5 years ago. It may be a different company. That's sort of, we're starting that process behind the scenes to get ready for that bidding process.
so I've talked to Michaud in the past, but it sounds like he's out of the loop now.
Well, I mean, he does our regular assessing changes, so he'll still be doing some of the regular town assessing changes that occur throughout the year. He's just not going to do the big entire town revaluation, just like 5 years ago. That'll be outsourced to a different company, which I'm assuming Jim works with them. I have to be honest, I don't really know how that process works.
So now I don't know who to probe here.
I think if you have a question, like if a resident has a question about their current home valuation right now, today,
Yeah.
that's Jim Michaud.
Yeah, that's not the kind of question I have. I mean, really, I wanted to know from him, when does it start? When would it be completed, which you.
Yeah, I believe it's in the
you've
summer.
answered here at this point. I'd like to get an idea of how the houses are affected, higher priced houses versus lower priced houses.
I'm assuming that's something that, our reevaluation company might be able to kind of provide some guidance on. I think my understanding of revaluation is that it can really be kind of up and down. So some types of houses will go up more than others. And, that's why when we set the tax rate, we did withhold some funds for kind of a safety cushion because of the revaluation, because you just never exactly know how that's going to turn out. I'm just pulling up right now the plan that we put out last time just to see if it says the timing. So last time we did the revaluation, we had bids due in December. We had completion of market sales and analysis was done by May 15th. Completion of the draft valuation was done by June 26th, 2020, and completion of the total valuation was done in July. And then the final report to the select board was August 15th. So sort of starts in the spring, goes into the summer. I'm assuming we'd be on a similar timetable to 5 years ago, but that's what it was in 2020.
Takes basically the first.
Takes like
half-
3-4 months to do the whole process, is my understanding.
So when we know who the company is, would I be able to talk to
I'm assuming so.
somebody there?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Yeah, just You can let me know
Sure.
when you've made the.
Yep, we will let you know.
There. Do you know what percent of market value we are at now? There was a time when we were at 72%, but that was a couple of years ago.
Yes, I want to say it had dipped a little from that based on all, the inflationary house price. I can't remember off the top of my head the last time Karen had updated us, but I want to say we had dropped below that sort of typical benchmark. I want to say maybe into the high 60s. It had definitely changed over time. So I think people can expect to see a significant increase in the valuation of most of the homes in town. And just to reassure people, because I know that it always gives them like heart palpitations, that when your house value goes up, your tax rate goes down because the tax increase is based on the budget, not on anything to do with how much your house is worth. So the amount of taxes that you owe is based on the amount of money it costs to run the town. And if your house value goes up, we will just raise a smaller, percentage of that for taxes. And so it has potential benefits to you if the value of your house has gone up, and it will not hurt you in taxes. I guess the only way potentially it could hurt you is if everyone in your neighborhood went down and you were the only one that went up, but that would be very unlikely to happen unless there were some strange extenuating circumstances.
And I can reinforce that at the public hearing.
Yeah, I think that's a common misunderstanding, is that if your house goes up, your taxes are going to go up commensurate with that, and that is 100% not correct.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Brian?
No updates from last week. There has not been a school board meeting. I did send the chair the payment schedule for the bonds. I think we're looking for further information on repayment based on power generation and expected. We may have to talk about this further offline to make sure I get the question correct before I go back to.
Yeah, well, that's why I sent you that example
Yep.
of, I mean, it seems to me that that's what the solar panels should match, except set for the new company, not, not for revision. And I think the original one was done for revision, so.
Yep.
Still would like to see that when and I would think that the new company should be able to produce that or an equivalent of it, given their engineering situation.
Yep, I will ask Dr. Andruski about it.
Okay.
In fact, I already have, but I will follow up with him to make sure I ask him the right question.
Okay.
That example.
So he's in the one that's in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Of that?
Primarily.
So he's a busy guy?
Yes.
now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I still want it.
No, I get it. I will work to get that for you.
Okay.
No update on the SAU budget proposal. I think in the minutes it reflected what their schedule is. The Budget Advisory Committee hearings are posted on the SAU website if you're interested in attending those. So those are out there. And I do have one follow-up that's not on the agenda, but you did ask last week about the statement from the Commissioner of Education about the reduction in special ed funding for districts. So on the board package for our meeting next week that just came out, there's a big memo from the SAU about, I believe, plans from the SAU and why there's an increased need for special ed funding. So I haven't had a chance to look at that because that came out at 4 o'clock this afternoon, or at least I didn't see it till 4 o'clock this afternoon. But you weren't the only one thinking about that statement from the commissioner. So.
Is your understanding that the SAU is going to give generalized advice to all towns in the SAU on how to potentially adjust budgets or capital reserve funds?
I believe so, or
Probably.
at least how to react to that statement.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up is the fire department.
Jack, would you be willing to have rec and joint loss go first? Because I think they're quicker.
Sure.
I think these guys had kind of agreed they would be okay with that.
Looks like they're very ready to go first.
Thank you for having me, everyone.
And rec is one of the ones that you have an updated in the separate packet that I printed for everyone that has the red pen on it. That has
Can
the
you
total.
identify those changes for me, please?
Yep, we can let you know, and we can, there's a copy here for you, Michelle, too. So this is the version that has the total bottom line rec budget of the 116,483, or up 3.4%. That is the budget that Andy's presenting tonight, right? Yep.
Yep.
Right,
What's
Andy?
the total number?
116,483, a 3.4% increase over prior year. All right, Andy, take it away.
Perfect. So to dive right into it, as you're looking at the budget, you know, breaking it down by those line items, only the director line and the seasonal line got increases. Retirement and FICA, you know, obviously play hand to hand to those line items there, which leads you to the 3% bottom line increase. Based off of the select board meeting a week ago when REC was presenting their budget. Just to put it on your radar, there will be a warrant article from the REC department for a full-time program coordinator position.
Okay.
I'll take questions.
Yeah, so we'll discuss the warrant article at another time.
Yep.
But it will be very important to promote that
Oh, absolutely.
very well. That's part of the reason I asked you for some information earlier today.
Yep. Already sent it to you.
Okay. Any questions for Andy to do with the rec budget proposed here?
I don't know, Andy.
So this is showing a 5.25% salary increase this year?
It should be 4% for myself and a 5% for the seasonal camp director.
And did you happen to bring in the revenues tonight, Andy? Not that I can see them, but
Yep, he did.
okay.
One, two. In 2024, we had a gross profit of $105,816.84, with a total expenditure of $88,837.91, with the revolving account having a net income of $16,978.93.
And this is through November 25th.
Yep,
Right.
as of today.
Yep.
And just to clarify, did you say you're taking the seasonal salary increase out, and that's going to a warrant article? Is that what I heard?
So the camp director role, that seasonal one, that is still going to be in place for the 17 weeks. The warrant article would be to increase that to a full-time position starting on May 1st.
So we would have 2 full-time people in the rec department.
That was what the warrant article would request. Correct.
And, all right, well, I guess we can discuss that at warrant article time, but I'm curious as to the necessity of another full-time person in that department.
I'm sure they'll be happy to speak to that during warrant article season.
Absolutely.
Select board just felt it was better to have that be a standalone warrant rather than folded into the budget.
That's fair.
Do you have some idea of what new revenue a new full-time person would bring in?
It's more, I mean, it's just more continuing and to build off of what's already existing in the rec department itself. Our department has grown vastly over the last 6.5 years. And just to maintain the day-to-day necessities of the department, it requires a second person to manage the staff, or manage the department, I mean.
How many hours does the director work?
40.
Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Who was that, Kat?
Yeah, that was me.
Thank you.
Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor? Elena?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
I'm a nay.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes.
And that was 116,483, right?
Right,
Yep.
Thank you.
increase of $3,847, a 3.4% increase.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing what you come up with for a warrant article. About the revolving account, you know, one of the things is we've never gotten information about how the revolving account functions. And, well, we know how it functions, but what exactly is it buying? And for transparency, I think it would be helpful to build the confidence of this committee if we could have a statement. I'm not sure what this is. Is this year-to-date something that I?
That's the numbers that
received?
he just read off, yeah.
So we've never seen this. This board has never seen this
So
statement.
to give a quick statement, if you look at the budget you just voted on, there's a lot of things in here that you don't see: equipment, balls, jerseys, background checks, so on and so forth. So our revolving account is taking user fees from the rec programs to take care of those said items.
We understand how it works mechanically, but we never see the dollar value. We never see the items for which it goes towards. And I think it would be helpful for this committee to see what the rec department is doing with its money.
Absolutely.
And
I agree. I think it gives a better sense of what the true expenditures are over there, which really is not reflected by this $100,000 budget. It's more like a $200,000 budget.
so you must produce this for the select board. Is this a report that the select board gets?
I think the select board has some insight into it because we sign off on the rec checks. So we see every week what is being spent out of that account.
Right.
But in terms of a formal accounting, I think that's a very helpful document that would be helpful to maybe share quarterly or, several times a year with
That's
both
what I was thinking,
committees.
Valerie. Would that be a problem to produce that quarterly?
Absolutely.
Quarterly would be good. If you email it to me, Andy, I'll see to it that the rest of the committee gets it.
You got it.
Okay. Okay, so I won't have to remind you, end of the quarter? Okay, is this for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'll copy it and distribute it to the committee for the time.
I can send you another copy too.
Not,
Whatever you need, Jack, whatever you need.
okay.
And-
Okay, is that all
Andy's-
you want us to know about?
Well, I'm also the chair of the Joint Loss Committee, so unless there's any further rec questions, I don't mind presenting that budget.
You want to briefly state what joint loss does, and then we can vote on it?
Yes, we meet quarterly to, discuss, I guess, potential liabilities in town, winter cleanup, when employees need to go through certain training, CPR, things like that. And it's staying level funded of $200. I should preface that most of the time, when we meet, I just look over to Kip. Yep, looks great. I handle more of the CPR aspect of it, but yes, I am the chair of it, and would like to keep it level funded.
So it's not, so it's $241?
Yes.
Any discussion on $241 for joint loss? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
This is Kat. I'll second.
Thank you, Kat.
You're welcome.
All in favor? Alina?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
So, yeah, let's do fire. So that was revised in the packet you just distributed to us, Jen, also.
And what is that now?
Well,
And actually, I'm realizing that the number I wrote at the bottom is the increase. The actual, the second page that's in here is as approved by the select board, the 1,297,761. So it's right in your packet there.
What was that total?
1,297,761. And so that's an increase of $290,474. And that is, do I understand correctly, that is for deputy and two lieutenants?
That would be correct.
And base salary adjustments.
And base salary
for all
adjustment.
workers.
And
For
base
everybody.
salary, okay.
So the two full-time positions won't be open anymore. They will be two full-time lieutenant positions instead of just two full-time. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Swapping the two full-time positions they have now to two full-time lieutenants.
And there'll be two full-time positions that are,
That would be filled with normal firefighters that they are now.
okay.
So I've got two now, I've got two open positions. I'd like to change the two open positions to lieutenants.
Got it.
So that $290,474 is just going into the salary line? I'm sorry, I don't have the current papers that you have before you, but I just want to make sure I'm seeing this accurately.
Is that all?
That would be salaries.
It's broken up,
That would
Michelle.
count.
The budget that we have in front of us, it's broken up in a couple different lines. So there's a straight salary line that goes up 8%. There's a full-time firefighters line that goes up 28%. There's an administration line, which is for the new deputy, that goes up 92.6% because that is essentially adding a whole new person. And then, of course, New Hampshire retirement jumps up significantly with some of these changes, so that goes up 42%. The only other significant increases in his budget that aren't people is an increase in protective gear for some of the PFAS gear, and a small increase for a radio repair line, and a small increase for equipment purchases. And then there is one line that goes down, which is the vehicle repairs line that goes down by $10,000 or 20%. So the bulk of all those personnel increases are broken up throughout several different personnel lines, as well as benefit, FICA, Medicare, and retirement lines.
As a practical matter, how long could the department go forward with this lineup?
To be perfectly honest with you, if it gets approved, it would stay that way. If I had my say. I've had discussions, but to me, when you start this is a step in the direction of making the department a full-time department, which is something you're gonna end up doing at some point. The idea behind it is to take the deputy's position and offer it up as a full-time position as the chief. Now, the discussion's been had, and whether you people decide to eliminate the deputy for the following year is strictly up to you. My recommendation would be to continue to have it and continue to maintain it as you start building the same kind of structure you've got downstairs. Because you are gonna, at some point, start increasing personnel. You're gonna get away from call departments. They are dying. You're gonna get away from that. You're gonna start hiring full-time people. You're gonna need the supervision. And it would be nice to have somebody responsible for the floor, meaning taking care of the daily operations, which is part of what that deputy does. And to give the chief more responsibility for checking on grants and doing paperwork and that type of stuff. The other way is to get him off the floor a little bit and to get somebody on the floor to supervise and move it forward. Kind of like what you get downstairs. You get the police chief that should be taking care of looking into the grants and the administrative end of it, and then the lieutenant should be taking care of the daily operations. My position becomes a deputy.
So the assumption is that with your retirement, the deputy would move into your position, or a chief from outside would be hired?
No, the idea behind this is to take that deputy and hopefully promote him to chief and take that spot at the time that it happens when I retire. The idea behind that is to get somebody in here that's familiar with the town, familiar with the way the operation works at the station, and that would be part of the discussion when you do the interviews. That it would be with the understanding that if you take this position, we're expecting you to fill the chief's position and on the other end when my retirement comes around. Now, like I said, whether you guys keep that position after is strictly up to you. I would myself maintain it because it develops that structure going forward to maintain a department, but I can't speak for the board.
Would we not have to, would we be able to not add new positions for 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years?
You're looking, like I explained to the select board, I know Letty had the position in there for a full-time spot. I would do that back with another per diem, if I could do that, and keep away from hiring the full-time position. But I'd also get away from the stipend we're doing at night, which means you would put a per diem on at night. So there literally would be 2 people in the station at the same time. Like I said, I knock on wood. I have got a fantastic group, and I can't praise Katerina enough because she covers more than her lion's share of some of the stipend shifts. And that goes away, then you've got that slot that you got to fill to begin with. And to find more call people, my list for call people is growing, but they're all brand new. They're all getting familiar with the town, whether that will continue or not. I've got an influx of probably about 4 or 5 right now. We'll see if they maintain the interest. Most of these people, if they're called people, you get maybe 3, 4 years out of them, and then they move on to something else. They're either doing it full-time for somebody else, or they're done with the career itself. It's a demanding job. If you've been around the last week, I did 24 hours straight last Monday night into last Tuesday with the brush fire. My crews were out from 8 o'clock on, right after I literally left you guys. We swung by and did a call out to that brush fire we had. Those people were in there digging all night long. They didn't get out of there till about 5 o'clock the following morning. And then some of them back the following day to continue. So it's a strenuous job. It's a time-consuming job. The call department, knock on wood, is, like I said, survived to this point. We're running now pretty much during the day with per diems, myself, Katarina, my administrator, my MS captain, and one full-time guy, and hopefully the per diem. But the minute that per diem bangs out, I lose that spot, so literally one of us is filling something during the day, so just to give you an idea.
Okay.
Trying to stabilize it, but the only way you're gonna stabilize it is you're gonna start having to put personnel on.
Chief, you said that the on-call thing is fading away. Are there other towns in our area who still do it that way, or have they all gone to full-time?
Kingston is working one full-time person and a per diem on nights now. Epping has got one person on and does 2 per diems at night to cover. I'm the next town over would be East Kingston, and he is doing the stipend. Danville is looking to get away from the stipend this year. But also East Kingston does about a half of the calls I do. I'm sitting at 1,000, he's sitting at about 400, 450 type of thing. So he's not doing the call volume I'm doing. He doesn't have a jail in town, a nursing home in town, which makes up a part of the call volume too. So they don't have those issues that I do. Kingston does have a nursing home in their town, and they are fairly busy at night with that also, so.
Any other questions, comments from the committee? Is there a motion?
Moved.
That was Alina. Is there a second?
This is Kat, and I can second this one as well.
If there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. Alina?
Aye.
Jen? Aye. Brian?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
I'm a nay.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Chief. That was for $1,297,761 with an increase of $294,74. Okay. Yes, Wayne. Next up.
Does everybody need a copy of my budget? I do have it here.
You can pass it around if you
Yeah,
want,
let's
Wayne.
take it.
If you already have them printed.
Thank you.
You got a fancy seal on the cover here.
Yeah, it's got printed in
Nice.
color.
I don't know, is that seal in the budget? Or,
Color printing, you know. getting a swelled head. I have one, but if you got one, an extra one, I'll take it. Thank you.
So, I don't know, Jen, does this match what you?
So if you look at the redlined copy that I gave you folks, what you'll see, and actually we may want to make some small adjustments to this. There was some, we had to do a few adjustments for wage adjustments and also to make sure our retirement was calculated correctly. And so I actually did some recalculations today. And now I'm realizing in retrospect that the reason my numbers didn't match Joyce's, because Joyce was helping Wayne with his budget, is mostly on just the FICA line. And that was because I didn't take into consideration the overtime. And so, you know, I don't know, traditionally, it looks like, I don't know if last year's budget took overtime into consideration or not, but that's one line that we might want to change. So if you look at the highway part of Wayne's budget, really the only changes you see on here is just salary, FICA, retirement. And what the select board did is we kind of tabled this visit until some of that math got double checked, this budget, but basically assented that we were going to pass whatever the corrected numbers were. And it's a relatively flat budget of like less than 2% increase on the highway side of it. And then when we get to the snow and ice control, we did make a significant cut on that budget, which we can talk about when we get to that one next. And so I did put there the number that was approved. So the select board did vote on that portion of the budget as amended, which was a decrease of about $80,000. And we can talk about that next.
Let's stay with the highway portion for the moment.
Great.
And are you saying that FICA Medicare needs to be corrected?
So I'm thinking so now, yeah. So the salaries have been corrected for a 4.5% increase for both full-time employees and a 4% for Wayne. As I discussed last week, the select board elected to give all department heads a straight 4% across the board increase because of some of our supervisory openings and people on leave that we've had right now. And so that number is just adjusted down just a slight bit based on those changes. And then New Hampshire retirement does actually go down just slightly from last year because of the fact that the rate does drop mid-year from 13.35 down to 12 point something. I don't have it right in front of me. So that is a definite decrease down to like 29,000. So I'm thinking that the one number we may want to change is that the 17,005 that I came up with on there is just FICA Medicare for the 3 full-time guys, but doesn't take into consideration overtime, whether that's seasonal or full-time overtime. And so now that I'm actually looking at my select board packet that I didn't have in front of me when I was doing this, Joyce has calculated that number out to be more like 20,000. So if we're going to try to get that number to fully account for the potential for overtime, we might want to change that 17,000 up to around 20,000 just to give that little buffer for overtime benefits. And if we do that, that would just be a slight increase in this bottom line budget. I think that probably would be smart.
So we don't have hard numbers to.
We have a number as calculated by Joyce of $20,044 for that line. And I'm actually thinking now that that would be a better number than the 17,005 because that was my error of leaving out the overtime benefits.
20,000.
044. And it looks like Alina's doing some calculatoring on her phone right now to get the.
Also, you just said that the retirement went down, but then the calculated number you have on here is higher.
Down from year prior. Year
Oh,
prior
okay.
was 3874.
Yes,
This year would be 29201.
Oh, okay, sorry. I heard it as down from what was calculated.
And that was a little, it was a
Previously.
little, a lot of our departments, the retirement line went up, but that's
Yeah.
because there's like our expansion and people in this department just has the 3 full-time guys. So you actually
Okay.
do see a small decrease here. What number is that? Pretty close, yeah. 20,000, yeah.
So does that increase our bottom line, the 833?
Just slightly, yeah, let me
to,
just add that. So if we do 20,044 minus 17,005, that'll increase our total number by $3,039. So if I add that to the 833,098, we would get 836,137. And I can give you your percentage in a second. And as I've said multiple times before, we do appreciate everyone's patience with all of this, given that we're operating without our town administrator, who usually helps us recheck all of these things. That would be a 2.16% increase over a year prior. And that's essentially all for personnel changes.
Any questions about the highway portion of Wayne's budget here? Comments?
I would like to thank Wayne for always, for not over asking. He always comes in here with a very reasonable budget with a very small increase, and I appreciate that, Wayne.
He heard that.
I heard that.
Good.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for $836,137 for the highway portion of Wayne's budget?
Moved.
Second?
Second. Sorry if I took away your
Oh,
second
no,
there.
it's okay.
You were on a roll. Didn't want to.
I'll third it.
Roll call vote. Alina?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
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 Although I committed to not approving any budget with an increase, a salary increase this high, I am an aye on this budget.
And I am also an aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, salt.
Do you want me to speak to this, Wayne?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the select board is obviously looking for places to tighten up our budget, especially with some of the necessity of increasing our budget over at fire to help that department survive. And so this was one budget that we felt we could make some changes to. The reason being, when you look at this 680 line, the last line of this budget, that this is for sand, salt, and cold patch. It was budgeted last year at 181,000. It was coming in this year at 170,000. So Wayne was already planning to decrease it slightly. And the conversation that we had at select board is we looked through the past 5 years of actuals for this, and the average was in like the 80,000 range for what is generally spent. This, my understanding is that this line item has generally been padded because we just don't know what kind of a winter season we might have. We could have winter Armageddon and need to buy a lot more sand, a lot more salt, a lot more cold patch, road repair, et cetera. But that looking back the 5 years, we had generally underspent this line item by just multiple tens of thousands of dollars. So in looking for places to potentially cut, the select board felt comfortable that we could remove $80,000 from this line item, leaving a budget of $90,626, which would still be a higher number than any number we have spent in the past 5 years, and that we would cope with the uncertainty of weather in 2 different ways. One is that a couple of years ago, the town legislative body voted to create a capital reserve fund called winter maintenance. I think that's the name of it. It has, I think, up $10,000 or $12,000 in it right now. The idea is that we would go to the voters and ask them to put some additional funds in that. We'd only need to do that for however many years we feel comfortable before we get to a nice safety buffer in that account. And that to give an additional safety buffer for this coming year, and maybe for a few years, we could talk about how we want to do this, that Wayne generally has extra unspent money in his budget, and he does this year as well, partly because of the winter being mild, and that we would encumber essentially the amount of money that he anticipates spending because he already has pledged for salt, that we would encumber that out of this year's unspent. So we would use unspent 2024 budgetary dollars to pay for the salt that we anticipate buying in early 2025 in the winter season. And that way we would have a safety buffer there. We'd have a small safety buffer already in the capital reserve fund. We'd ask the public to help us slowly grow that safety buffer in the capital reserve fund. And by outsourcing that money into the CRF, we would no longer have to float it in the budget as essentially cushion for the budget. And that would allow us to bring this budget down by about $80,000 this year. And so we discussed that. I know it makes Wayne nervous because he's afraid he's not going to get his salts paid for, but he absolutely is. We are paying for that no matter what. And so we just thought this was one place in the budget that was probably the most obvious that we could probably trim, as long as we have some safety contingencies for if we have an awful weather season in the coming years. I think, is that how you understood it, that conversation that we had?
Yeah, I didn't understand too much that Tuesday night, how you got it, but I got.
That makes more sense, okay.
I got a bit of it.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a couple different safety measures.
Yeah, I just don't, I just don't want to be left to worry about when we get storms at the end of the year, because I mean, last year, the amount is 2,250 ton. I come close to using most all that.
Yep.
Last year, and that is, the price of that is $155,250.
Yep.
Dollars just for that salt. Now, this is the amount that I'm actually limited. They have to have a meeting because I have to do guesswork on how much we use. So I kind of, this year I stuck with the same, with what we had last year. And hopefully we won't get any more snow than what we did.
Right.
And, but as long as I can get my hands on the money to.
So I think our
if we
intention,
get it,
Wayne, is
so.
that you would come to us in December and you would say, out of this $155,000 or $160,000 of salt that I'm gonna need to buy, I've already spent X, whatever it is, right? 60,000. So I need another 100,000.
Okay.
And so we would encumber that money and hold on to it and say, if
Yeah.
needed, we're gonna use this for salt. If not needed, it goes back to the general fund and back to the voters. But that it would give us that, at least that 1 year safety buffer, because you're not gonna have as much in next year's budget. So it would allow you to cover all of this year's
of this year,
pre-purchased salt.
Yeah.
And then we'd have that little buffer in the
Well,
capital fund.
and the other thing that I didn't mention at last Tuesday night, but this money here, this amount of money that I'm asking, that's $170,625. At the end of the year, I have to get the sand, especially if we're going to use sand. This is going to be for next year's sand.
Okay.
So the amount, and I actually don't know what the amount of sand is going to be, because I don't know how much we have. We have a pretty good sized pile, and he's bringing 500 yards of sand, because I didn't need any more than that, and that's about 13,000 for this year.
So he will need
He's bringing that
invoices.
in now, so within the next few weeks,
So that'll come out of this year's
I'm gonna
budget.
have to come after the money for that, and that's in this
Yep.
year's budget. As long as I can
And you have plenty of room in this year's
make sure-
budget.
Right. So if I ain't gotta worry about it.
Nope, you don't need to worry about it.
And
And remember, you're also getting a budget for next year of almost 91,000. So you still have funds to,
I mean,
by
and I
next
can
year.
also fall back on my own budget here
Yep.
too, I think. If I don't use all the money in these line items by the end of next year, I can fall back to this a
Exactly.
little bit.
Exactly.
To get it too, so.
Exactly.
I see how it is now.
Yep.
I think
we're just trying to
fine.
find any place we can tighten up the budget to
Yep.
redirect some funds to fire for this year.
And you know what street Jen lives on, just in case the salt runs low.
Don't make my neighbors suffer because of my budgetary trimming.
I was just gonna say that Jen just jinxed the whole winter season.
I don't know. Hopefully not.
And then just because we are trimming back and you're looking historically, do you have a feeling of like what kind of like the inflation has been on like salt and sand and all that kind of stuff? Or, you know, is it relatively stable year over year?
Yeah, no, it's pretty stable right
Okay.
now. I mean, the sand is getting scarce. The sand is getting scarce, but Chris Beebe takes care of that for me, and he said he can get it. So,
It's kind of an awkward system where he has to say in advance, like, this is
Yeah.
the maximum amount of salt I think I need. So that's the 160. But what we actually spend every year is like 80.
Oh, yeah, no, I have the
Yeah.
2023 open, so that's why I
Gotcha.
just wanted to make sure
Right.
that.
So that's why we purposely left 90 in there. Like, we
Yeah.
didn't want to tempt fate and, like, you know, trim it down to the average. Because it's sort of an awkward system, though, where you basically have to get it pledged in advance, but then we don't always spend it all.
no.
And that's part of the reason why he ends up with some extra funds in his budget.
It-
And why last year we were able to use some of those extra funds to do the rec road because he had extra in
Yeah.
his budget. His budget tends to be the one that has the most extra room in it, unless other budgets have like personnel openings.
Yeah.
Then we'll have more money there. But because Wayne's budget has that seasonal variability, I think the historical pattern has been to pad his budget for safety. And we're just thinking maybe that's not the most economic thing to do when we have some other options.
Makes sense.
Just to let you know too, that this sand here, I have 67 miles of road in the town, the sand, plus I'm getting one phase of Three Ponds Campground this year.
Yep.
And I left it the same. I didn't really add on that. I figured that the Three Pond Campgrounds is kind of out and open, and I just used that number that I have. But next year, I think we're getting the whole thing. So that might bring it up a little different
Sure.
for next year for sand.
Yep.
And salt.
And it's definite that, as far as you know, that the state is going to continue plowing Middle Road.
Yep, far as I know, I heard that we were taking it over, and I said, oh my God, we're taking that over, I got it.
That's a rumor.
So I, soon as I heard that, I went down to the state shed in Epping, because they're the ones that handle it down there, and I went in and I asked the boss in there. I said, I heard that we're gonna get, 111A, to have to plow 111A, and, he looked at me funny, and there was another guy sitting in there with him, and that guy jumped right up and he says, I don't think so. He said, I don't think we're getting that. That's the road I plow. And I said, well, okay, if you guys don't know anything about it, then
Sounds good.
we heard that, and I said, but if it changes, just let me know. I mean, we're not afraid to take it or anything like that, because we have to go through that whole road anyway when we plow our road. So we can just leave our plow down and do it anyways. But what my thing is I gotta get, if we take that over, I gotta get salt for that. And that's what my main reason was to go see them, because I said, are you guys gonna, if we plow it, you sanding the salt? And that's what I wanted to follow up on, just on that,
So it
just
sounds like we're good.
to find what, it sounds like we're good.
So when you order salt, you place an order, do you have to use all the salt you order, or can you tell them?
Well, each storm gets heavier than, the first few storms. And when we get done plowing, I have to use, sometimes I have to use, two tractor trailer loads. And then if we get extra hours, we have to, I'll have to get like three loads. And like last week, I ordered 2 loads, I think it was 60 ton, 30 ton in each load. And I ordered 60 ton for last week, and it's over $4,000 for both of those loads.
Now, with
But
the-
that number
that's-
is just the maximum amount you can order, right?
Yeah, no, I can order as much as I want.
Oh, okay, that's sort of the maximum, that's
Oh.
the amount that we sort of requested or reserved.
That's
for,
that's what
right?
I don't have room for it.
Right,
So what I do is just, once I get going, I try to keep
Okay.
the salt up enough so we, are not gonna run out or
Yeah.
we
we
have,
can't take it all at
Keep it
once, so we
full.
just pay for it as we take
yeah.
it.
And I have to do that all the way through winter to get the amount.
So you must place a blanket order with the salt company. Do you place a blanket order with the salt
Yeah,
company
just call 'em.
for X amount?
But-
Or does it go storm by storm?
It goes by storm by storm. I start using it by the storm, because once I get going, and I'll tell you, when we go out and salt, it all depends what the school does. The school time, schools, we have to stay ahead of the school buses. So if they have school during a snowstorm, we try to get ahead of them. So when they go around and pick up the stool and when they bring them back, so that's like 2 extra times that we have to sand and salt the whole town when they have a school day.
I'm sure my kids would be happy if there were more snow days.
So-
Right. Careful what you wish for.
Or, well, not if they're remote learning days.
Yeah, they're not gonna
True.
be happy about that.
Yeah,
True.
not quite the same.
Nor would I.
So with a change to 90,626 for the sand, salt, and cold patch,
So that amended
That-
number
that
down
would-
at the
that would-
bottom that you see is what we approved at Select Board, 142,410
for
for
the-
this
for the
part of
cold-
the budget.
for the salt.
For
The
this
snow and
entire
ice
snow
budget.
and ice budget, which was listed here as 222,409, we approved 142,410.
Okay. Making a total with the highway budget of the 975.
Because we just modified that one, the new total is 978,547 for both budgets together, which is a decrease of 6.85% from last year, or $71,984 decrease.
Okay, so is there a motion for 142,410 for the snow and ice budget?
Moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Alina?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
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 All right. I think you're good, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you,
Okay,
Wayne.
thank you.
One question, Jack.
Yes.
Jen, what did you say the CRF for winter maintenance had in it currently?
I want to say it's got like 10 or 12,000. I don't have it right in front of me. So there would be a warrant article to ask to put some additional money into that, probably over the next couple of years, until we feel that we have a comfortable buffer. And then that would allow us to drop potentially the highway budget even a little bit more once we feel we have a good safety buffer.
Could you potentially take the money from the previous year and put it?
I don't think you can encumber funds into a capital reserve fund. I think that has to be done by the legislative body. But that's my understanding.
Okay.
I don't think you're allowed to do that. The voters would have to approve that.
Well, could you ask the voters to approve that?
We can find, I don't know. I don't know if you can ask the voters to encumber prior year into a capital reserve fund, but we could certainly find that out. That's an interesting question. If it's allowed, we certainly could do that, because that would allow us to just use prior
Right. Because
revenues.
I think most people would want their roads salted and taken care of, right?
Of course, 100%. I think that's a pretty much 100%. Let me try to find out the answer to that.
Especially for that fire department to get to them.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, and there's no town administrator budget to be considered at this point. so,
Well, there is the one as approved by the select board. So the last time we discussed that budget at this meeting was before the announcement that Karen Clement no longer worked for Brentwood. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
now that we know that there's an open position there that we are hiring for, I don't know if this board wants to move forward and approve that budget that was previously approved by Select Board, or if you want to recommend any modifications to that budget to go back to Select Board. I think that's really up to this budget committee, what you would like to see happen there.
Has the select board yet done any kind of research on compensation for similar positions in smaller
I
towns?
don't know that we have done that yet, but we just posted the position. I think that will be an important step to make sure that my gut feeling is that we are in sort of the correct range, but I think we'll have to look at some similar sized towns and see what their compensation looks like.
I think we should wait. There's no risk in waiting. There's not like, we
Yeah,
can
I-
approve it
I-
Yeah,
as a last.
there's
I
not-
agree, I agree.
Yeah, there's not a huge risk to waiting.
Select Board needs to have the flexibility to whatever.
Well, we
negotiate.
also will have to reopen and, there's no position right now, so.
Right. Yeah, I'm fine with you guys holding out on it until we have a better sense of if we need to increase the salary line to allow us for hiring purposes.
Okay, we just have couple other things here. The announcement for the next budget public hearing is, what we talked about last week. Nothing has changed since then. It's going to be posted in the Brentwood newsletter in December and January. And Steph Lewandin is working on that. I distributed some changes in the labeling for our budgets, and wherein we're trying to get away from the phrase tax impact and possibly consider budget amount. Does anybody have further thought about that? Would that seem to make sense? Did anybody like budget impact better, or tax guide better, or?
I think budget impact is more realistic for what that number means. And I know you did say it last year, but I think we just need to keep saying it, that is, if nothing else changes, this would be the impact of this higher budget on you as a taxpayer. But I think especially this year, since we're having a revaluation, there needs to be like extra asterisks around that number. And I'll still say, I don't know, having never been on a budget committee before, that I do think that this is a hard ask for a budget committee. I think it's a hard ask for a budget committee, especially in a revaluation year. And I think it's really generous that this budget committee tries to predict to taxpayers what their increase is going to be. But I think we need to keep that messaging that there are so many variables that could be at play here that is a hard number to predict. And we just need to make sure we keep saying that, which I know you did because I was there and I heard you say it. But I think we just need to keep saying that this is maybe we should call it potential budget impact or
Estimated.
estimate or,
Budget
you know.
impact is the budget
Yeah,
impact, right?
so
We
estimated
just need to
fiscal.
make
That's
sure
true,
it's
that's
just
true.
the budget impact.
Yeah,
Because
that it's-
once the budget is approved, the number doesn't.
That's true. The budget is the budget.
Shouldn't change.
It just
Yeah.
has, the revenue has moving parts that BudCom
Funding
cannot
and
predict
revenue,
at
right.
13 months in advance or whatever.
Funding, valuation, and revenue.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we can just put it in red and say that.
So maybe
these
calling
change-
it
These
budget.
things can change. This, the budget will remain, but these things could change.
So we're leaning towards the phrase budget impact?
Yeah.
Where we're
I think
at?
not having the word tax in it is
Yeah, I
smart.
agreed.
No word tax.
Don't put the T
No.
word in there.
Okay.
That's going to spook people out. I like having the word budget
How
instead of
about
tax.
budget increase?
Well, we may have a budget decrease someday.
That's true. It's possible.
That would be fantastic. I think increase or decrease would be easier to understand than an impact.
Yeah,
for
might be.
For the regular.
But I
Because
think,
that way, you're right, we're just saying this is what our expected expenditures are going to go up to. It has no bearing on what your tax rate may be or what your tax bill will be. That's totally separate.
The only thing I'm thinking, Michelle, that could be confusing is that budget increase, like if you're just looking at the budget to the budget, that's going to be a different percent. So you might have two things that are both called budget increase, and that might confuse people because, you know, if you're just doing dollars to dollars, but here you're actually factoring in estimated revenue. So that would be my only concern about that, which I think maybe the word impact works better or some other word. Because technically it's not a budget increase, it's the budget increase minus anticipated revenue. So that might get a little murky using that term.
I also think with the, like the slide as worded, impact, like this is the impact on a $400,000 property is, to me, that makes the most sense. And I think it leaves the least room for people to get confused.
Mm-hmm.
Think that it means something different than what it means.
Right.
Are we comfortable continuing using $400,000 house?
Yes.
Are there many houses?
Well, I think after the revaluation, we'll probably
Thousand.
change that.
It
We
will-
may change that number.
It will change, but since our assessment was done in 2020,
Right.
the 400,000 has been the number.
I
That was
suspect
one of
it'll
the
be
things that I
A different
went
number.
after the assessor for, and he gave me that as the median.
Yeah.
Actually, it was
It'll
like-
probably be $550,000
I
house
don't
next
think you
year
can
or
buy a
something.
tenth at a $400,000 around the area.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
that number's definitely going to
Well,
change.
By this time next year, you'll know what that number.
What the median
increase
or
is.
mean is,
It
yeah.
might be
It could drop.
30 or 40%. Well, it could.
Well, and that can be part of your
Could all
presentation
drop.
too, Jack, you know, is explaining that we will have the revaluations and the average home value will look different
Yes, and
next year, and that rate will be different, but those are things we can't tell you right now because we don't have that information.
Right,
right. The other thing that's happening a little bit besides behind the scenes is I've put together kind of a live spreadsheet which highlights all the components of our the calculation of our tax rate. Did this with the help of Molly O'Keefe, and I think she's probably supplied you with spreadsheets for each town tax calculation. If not, in any event,
Yeah.
that's what the format is what I based it on. And it allows you to change numbers. Use your, which basically will be our collectively best estimate of what the revenues are and what the appropriations are in order to arrive at what I think is going to be, you know, we'll call it a budget impact, but what will it mean to a $400,000 house? So, in any event, I passed that along to Letty. She's going to play with it over the next few days, and then I'll talk with her about it. I want to see if she thinks there's some thoughts about the utility of it. Okay, if there's no other subjects, our next meeting scheduled for December 9th here in the town hall, 6 o'clock. Is that, as I understand it, Gabby is going to be away, but does seem like we'll have everybody else in person.
yeah, I think so.
Should be.
I have, my husband's away for business, so as long as my childcare doesn't fall through, I should be here.
Oh, bring her in.
That's true.
That's, her bedtime's not until like 7, so she could not melt for like a full hour.
Put it right
It
to
would
sleep.
make us go faster.
Right?
She brightened up the voting day. Anyway,
Yeah, she's
that was nice.
a very bright.
Jack, dare I ask what the agenda item is that says from the wilderness?
I decided not to
Okay.
proceed with that.
Okay, we'll hold on that.
I thought it was a good, for a moment, it was a good thought, but it
Okay.
it's didn't pan out.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And
Second,
second,
that's Jen who seconded.
and Alina vote.
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
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 I
and I'm an aye. We are adjourned.
All right,
Thank
great.
you all.
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
And
Happy
and to you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
The phone and the microphone here, that worked quite well, actually, Michelle.
Yeah, now that we have these adjustable microphones, it doesn't